joke for Alice had.
All this because a pilot got lost almost 60 years ago and wondered if the keepers of these beacons felt a little lost at this time of year, too. Keepers who, for so long, have shown the way and the light.
Our weather? Unsettled. Satellite photo shows a Pacific frontal system approaching the interior. Rain and snow there. On the south coast, unstable air, unsettled conditions. The forecasts by region. First for the far north, cloud and not unseasonably chilly. For the interior, cloud showers and highs well above zero tomorrow afternoon. And for the coast, showers, but at least it'll be warm. That's it for now. John Gibbs has the news hour at 6. Right now, Webster with Iona.
Help wanted. Men and women of the grandparent persuasion to become friends with BC children. It's a special relationship that the volunteer grandparents of BC want to nurture. And Mary Painter, the coordinator, is coming up. Also tonight, we speak with Rick Hansen as he nears the halfway point in the home stretch of the Round the World Man in Motion Tour. He checks in from White River, Ontario. And your favorite oatmeal savage is hobnobbing on the links under the Hawaiian sun. Webster sends his greetings from the Kapalua Golf and Country Club. But first, is Christmas cheer starting to get on your nerves? The 2 days before Christmas, a few hints on how to fight seasonal stress. In the studio, David Cox, professor of psychology from Simon Fraser University. Sitting in for Jack Webster, Iona Campagnolo.
And welcome to Webster again. Tonight, Dr. Cox and I are going to talk about Hanukkah and Christmas and all the stress that it can bring. Dr. Cox, why is Christmas a stress time?
Well, Christmas is a time of stress because it represents a time of change. The great Canadian Hans Selye demonstrated it to us so capably that most of us cope very well with minor variations in our life, but when the variations exceed our ability to cope, that things become too arousing or they're there for too long a time, then they become stressful to us. But what stress constitutes is change in the body's ability to cope.
How does the holiday season stack up against all the great stressful situations that come into a life, a divorce, a death in a family, a new baby in the family, buying a new house?
Well, it has one advantage, and that is certainly that it can be anticipated. Every year we know that Christmas is going to come around 12 months. Every 12 months Christmas comes again, so that we can certainly anticipate the Christmas season, and in that regard we can plan it. We can plan to be able to cope with the stress of Christmas, whereas some of the things you've mentioned, a death in the family, we may not be prepared for that, and it may come as a tremendous blow to us. And certainly things which we are unprepared for are much more difficult to cope with.
You mentioned Dr. Hans Selye. I happened to sit beside him once on a cross-Canada flight, and he was the most stressed man I ever saw. He was chewing his fingernails. He was nervous as a cat. Is stress harmful to people?
Well, clearly Selye was a man who was driven by his work, but stress over the long run, and what we're talking about is a chronic level of stress sustained over a long period of time, is certainly harmful. Selye was very important, I think, in that he made a distinction between the situation of distress, where we might view something as being negative or harmful, and then he talked about this state of eustress, where because of an optimal level of functioning, we might take on more than we could ordinarily cope with. And I think Christmas, for many of us, represents that time. Because we're doing quite well in our lives, because we're in a situation of affluence, we tend to take on more. And we tend to take on more than we can cope with. Are we guilty? Well, I think we set ourselves up. We set ourselves up in regard to we engage in too much social activity, we drink too much, we eat too much, and at the end of it all, at the end of the Christmas season, we might end up saying something like, now I could really use a holiday. And Christmas hasn't been the time of rest that we'd really anticipated. Whereas, clearly for some people, and this would be the other side of it, Christmas is a time of distress. It's a time that reminds them of the things that they don't have. I remember a single parent saying something like, in response to the joys of Christmas, it's not a joyful time. It reminds me of the time of my aloneness. So clearly for some of us, some people are alone at Christmas time, or they don't have the financial resources to experience Christmas. I do some clinical work in a prison, and Christmas is much different in a prison than it is on the outside.
Of course, there are a lot of people who don't celebrate Christmas in our society. We have a pluralistic society, and Christmas is mainly a Christian holiday.
It is.
And what about them? Do they feel left out? Do they get stress?
Well, participating as a Christian, of course, I can't comment on that, but what I do remember being in the Middle East in the late 1960s and being in Eastern Turkey on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and feeling very distressed that no one was celebrating Christmas. I felt very, very depressed at the time. And I've often wondered what it would be like to be in a country as a non-Christian where everybody else would be appearing to have a wonderful time, and yet this was a holiday that I didn't celebrate, and I think I would find that very stressful.
What kind of psychological help would you offer someone who hates Christmas?
Well, I think that a person would come to hate Christmas or dislike Christmas for some of the reasons that I've mentioned, where Christmas would be a circumstance where it points out to them, it makes them very aware of things that they don't have. And so that would be the person who at the end of Christmas would say, I'm glad it's over, now we can get back to normal functioning. And so for that person, what you'd want to try to do would be to perhaps alleviate some of the distress that they feel for whatever means, through social support networks, giving them things to do, or providing them with some of the things that they don't have.
What about alcohol and stress? Do they mix?
Well, certainly people see alcohol as a way of coping with stress. If they're overly stressed, they'll drink. And of course, the implications are that we can tolerate a certain amount of alcohol, but in the long run, the effects of alcohol will be to increase our level of stress. And I think the other thing about alcohol, of course, is that the Christmas season is that it's also something which can cause distress for other reasons. It can cause distress for those around us because of our behavior when we've been drinking, and things like drinking and driving and so on are just not tolerated.
I noticed in the statistics that I was reading today that the crisis lines at Christmas say they have more men calling in than women, and generally the rest of the year they have more women than men. What do you think accounts for that?
Well, I think that those would be people who probably at Christmas time find themselves alone. And that may be so with a lot of males, that they find themselves alone and they're become very aware of their loneliness. And so they seek out, and I think appropriately, they seek out social support.
We're supposed to be so happy and joyful. Doesn't that alone put stress on people?
Well, certainly there's an expectation. There's an expectation of the way that you should respond to Christmas. And if Christmas doesn't feel that good to you, then I think you would find the sort of expectations of the normal response, that it's a time to be happy, and you might find yourself saying, I'm not happy, I don't feel good.
Well, I don't know. Being nice once a year doesn't seem to me to be a good formula for making yourself feel good the rest of the year. Surely those are the lessons that we try to teach through Christmas, to improve the way you live your life.
Right. Well, I think that what many people would suggest is that the kind of spirit that we display at Christmas time is something that should be present the year round, that it shouldn't be something that we save up for once in the year.
And what about stress on the new split families we have so many of, with new fathers and stepfathers and stepmothers and so on? How can they cope with the Christmas stress?
Well, if you're talking about like a single parent situation where there may be one parent...
Or maybe a blended family.
A blended family. Well, I think what we do at Christmas is that probably the biggest buffer that we have for stress is social support at Christmas time. We tend to get together with other people. We tend to celebrate together. And I think that to that extent it behooves a person to go out and look for social support systems to draw themselves. I remember in the late 1970s and early 1980s, my wife and I were living in London, and Christmas was a time that we would remember our friends and family back in Canada, and we would miss them. And we did something on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day, which brought us a tremendous amount of satisfaction, and that was that we went to St. Paul's Cathedral, and we had this sense of a community and a group of people sharing in the Christmas spirit, and to us it was very comforting.
And all the generations coming together, as happens in so many happy parts of the Christmas season. Does that put stress on people?
Well, I think it can put stress on people, particularly because people feel a need to get together. And, you know, people will travel enormous distances at Christmas time. I mean, you go out to the Vancouver National Airport at Christmas time, you probably find that the stress level is pretty high. Or go down into downtown Vancouver, where people are, you know, running around trying to buy gifts at the last moment for relatives that they've forgotten about, or people that they suddenly found out are going to show up. Clearly, the stress of that kind of gathering is increased.
Well, the focus of the tension seems to come together at Christmas time. And when you talk about everyone coming together at the airport and so on, are there any tricks of your trade of psychology that can be used to ease this time of tension?
Well, I think there's a number of strategies that one can use to help one cope with stress. I think probably the best one, and one which we could think about, is health and well-being, and that I think we can actively engage in looking after our health at Christmas time. We can make decisions about not overeating, not overdrinking, taking time to rest and relax during the Christmas season. I mean, those are things that we have control of. We can choose to do those things. We can change the situation. And what I'm thinking of there is that, you know, Christmas Day, for example, could be very stressful for a female in the household for whom Christmas,
all of the full responsibility.
Exactly. Her husband sees this as a day off of work. Christmas Day and Boxing Day is a day off of work, and yet for her it's a time to perform. People are going to comment on her cooking and so on. Well, I would think that what she might want to do is think about, I may not be popular for this suggestion, but she might want to delegate some responsibilities and ahead of time plan out the Christmas Day and say that her husband will be in charge of making the dessert or making some of the dinner, and the children can be involved in terms of the cleaning up, so that everybody shares in it.
Makes
in the
good
responsibility.
sense.
What's their sharing of the
Well,
responsibility?
your phone calls are invited to Dr. Cox on various ways of coping with Christmas after the break. Back again, coping with Christmas, and we're going to go straight to your calls to Dr. Cox. You're on the air.
Yes, I've been living in Vancouver here for 2 years, and I'm away from my family, and I'm really not looking forward to this holiday season. I was looking forward to it. I haven't been in a relationship for a while, and finally this summer I met somebody that really meant a lot to me. And before, about a month ago, and I was really looking forward to finally, you know, having somebody to share Christmas with, being away from my family. And the relationship ended, and I can't wait till these holidays are over, because I really don't know whether I'll make it through. I'll hang up and wait for your response.
Thank you for calling. Is there any way you can help in that kind of situation?
Well, this is a very difficult situation. It's very troublesome, because there was a relationship which is also, increased the amount of stress that the individual is feeling in the relationship ending. So you have this situation of Christmas in which one would expect to be happy, and that's compounded by the fact that the relationship has ended. I would think that that person should find someone to talk to, and
What about finding a neighbor who maybe doesn't participate in Christmas and taking them out to dinner?
Well, I think those are the sorts of things that that one can do at one level, is to actively seek to change things. And I think that there are organizations within the city that one can, rather than sort of sitting back and sort of taking the stance of how bad I feel, one can actively try to change that and almost look upon it as a challenge. How can I overcome this? What can I do to change my situation?
Well, I hope that can happen. We're going to Victoria now. You're on the air, Victoria.
Yes, thanks, Iona. Good afternoon. I just was wondering, I don't want to sound negative, but Christmas is a great time and all, but why is it that it seems when in-laws and family who are normally apart throughout the year get together at this time, that old wounds are opened up again, and there seem to be a lot of dinner table arguments. Is there some kind of mental psychology there? Is there a particular reason why that always seems to happen?
It sure does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you love everybody you're with, or most people,
Yes.
I guess, but sometimes, things slip out.
Let's see what Dr. Cox has to say.
Well, of course, one of the things that you've made reference to is that this is maybe the only time of the year that you actually get together. And so that this is the time of the year that you'll actually have this chance to sort out some of these difficulties. And if there are some things in the past that you want to sort through, you know that this is the only chance you might have. So I guess what I would say is that in some regards, it's important to be diplomatic at Christmas time and to recognize that maybe the dinner table isn't the place to do this. Perhaps after the meal is finished and later on in the evening, you might want to sit down with somebody and talk about some unresolved conflict from the past.
I've known of hostesses who say no discussion of anything controversial until after dinner. So maybe that might work. You could try that this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Bye-bye. Now you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Hi, I would like to ask Dr. Cox, how do you handle the lack of stress? Like, I enjoy cooking Christmas dinner, and now I don't have anybody to cook it for.
How about that first caller we just had?
That's right.
I wish we could get together. Now, what about?
The most beautiful part of the season is to go out shopping for your loved ones and everything else. And now I don't have anybody to do it for.
Well, I think, first of all, I think that there probably are organizations around Vancouver that would be very willing to take advantage of your enthusiasm to share
Well, I wish I would know of some organizations, because I don't know anybody. I'm just...
Why don't you just call the Salvation Army and ask if they know a family? I'm sure they could arrange it for you.
Well, I feel so, I mean, the best part of Christmas was always to get up in the morning and go to church and cook the Christmas dinner and that, and now there's nobody there.
Well, I think you should try to, I think you've still got time to find an agency that can put you in touch with the kind of service that you'd like to provide, and I think that's tremendous that you'd want to do that.
And it would be great for them and great for you. Thank you for calling, and I hope you do end up having a Merry Christmas.
Okay, Merry Christmas to you.
Bye-bye. You're on the air.
Yes.
Go ahead.
For that gentleman that's on his own and was unfortunate enough to have a breakup in his relationship, the Arlington Cabaret on West Broadway tomorrow night is having a free dance for singles. Now, they play good country music there, and if you're country-fied, it's a good place to spend the evening and possibly start some kind of a temporary relationship for the Christmas season.
Sounds like fun. Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
We're going to go now to Revelstoke. You're on the air, Revelstoke.
Right. Hello, Ina.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to phone and wish a Merry Christmas to you and Dr. Cox, and also to Jack Webster. Nobody's mentioned him lately.
Oh, he's going to be on today. Yes, and I mention him every day. Thanks for calling in, and Merry Christmas to you.
On the whole topic, I'm waiting for my son and daughter to come up, and I don't think I feel any real stress.
Wonderful. Have a happy time. Bye-bye. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Iona.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Cox. I'm calling because a friend of mine is very down at the moment, and I don't think it's particularly related to Christmas, but maybe partially. I think what this individual has happening is some problems at work, and he has stopped working and has left his job, not permanently, but is taking a leave of absence, and is seeking someone who can perhaps help him with a work disorder. And I'm wondering if there are any agencies in town, psychologists perhaps, that would be able to accept something that is very specifically a work-related problem.
Well, for sure there are. The kind of situation which you're describing is one which we would see much more as a stress-related disorder, because this is a reaction to a chronic situation, which is a work situation. And I think that there are numerous agencies in Vancouver that would be prepared to help your friend deal with these problems. And I think if you look in the yellow pages of the telephone book under psychologists, you'll see all kinds of qualified people who you could contact.
Could you take that call off the air and perhaps give him the name of one?
Sure.
Hold on, and Dr. Cox will speak to you off the air. And we're going to be back with two very special guests by telephone after the break. Well, welcome back. We've got a very special guest at the end of this telephone line, the one and only host of this show, Webster himself. How are you, Jack?
I feel very funny to be a guest on the Webster Show, but I'm happy indeed to call you from here and not be sitting beside you, although I love you dearly, Iona, and they tell me you're doing a magnificent job on the program.
Well, you're very, very kind to me, because for many of these days my voice has been almost non-existent. Have you got a tan yet, Jack?
I've got a good tan. Just at the moment, I'm sitting in my little villa overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I played golf up at Kapalua today. I shot 89, which is good for me.
Fantastic.
For the benefit of all the sandbaggers at Point Grey, my own golf club, I've had 4 rounds in the 80s and a couple of disaster rounds. I played so badly yesterday, I almost threw my clubs into the nearest sand trap.
Did you meet any of Canada's
Almost
rich
today.
and famous up there, Jack? Did you meet any of Canada's rich and famous up there?
As a matter of fact, the only rich and famous I bumped into today was none other than the Puck himself.
Ah, Peter Pucklington.
Peter Pucklington.
I guess since he settled his strike, he can go abroad and have a little bit of a rest.
Well, I said to him, you know, I hope you settled it on proper terms. Otherwise, go sit at the other end of the bar and grill. I don't really want to talk to you. He assures me he's settled on fair terms, so I might even play a game of golf with him.
Well, I guess that's all right. And by the way, have you got your presents for the staff yet? They've all been asking me.
Do you know something? I meant to do that the afternoon I left, and somehow or other it slipped my mind. But they know I'm Mr. McScrooge anyway. Give them such warmth of feeling and encouragement and loving words in the course of daily work that they all know that I love them dearly.
Well,
Couldn't do it without them. And you found out my secret. It's not me
I
that
have
does
found
the
out
program,
your
it's
secret,
they who
Jack.
do the program.
I always used to think you did it all by yourself.
Well, that's what I always say, because it's so, you know, it's so hard to be humble.
Well, have you started working on your New Year's resolutions yet?
Yes, I have started working on them.
What's it going to be?
I'm determined to stop smoking. I'm determined to stop eating in such an ill-disciplined fashion, and I'm determined to break 80 on the golf course before I come back.
Well, I hope you do. And what are you going to be doing Christmas Day?
I'll probably have a brunch on Christmas Day with a very good friend of mine, whom you know, who's on the other side of the political spectrum.
Oh, I know the gossip columnists have been calling here saying that you and that mystery lady are meeting in Hawaii.
We're talking, of course, about Pat Carney, who's stolen a couple of days away from all her Counterville capers.
Well, I think
bit of a
she
holiday with
deserves
her
a bit of a
son,
rest,
JP.
too. You've got a few others of your friends showing up, too, haven't you?
Lots of them,
Right.
a remarkable number of them.
Well,
But
I want you to
Hawaii
know.
the weather's been patchy a little bit in the mornings. We play on a golf course up the top of Kapalua occasionally called it's the village course.
Well, it's been raining
And it
cats and
rained
dogs
there,
here.
but it cleans up 5 minutes later and you dry off and it's no problem at all. But
It's been raining like heck here. I must tell you, it's pouring down Enterprise Avenue right now as if it was a river.
oh dear, well, I've got to tell you to put your head back when you finish tonight and gargle with salt and water.
Yes, that's what I've been doing for days. I've had 400 different potions sent me by your loving listeners. They've taken very good care of me, as have the crew. And I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, Jack.
I want to say seriously to not just to my staff who know that, but to everybody else who's helped and cooperated in the Webster program for this past 9, I think we're in our 10th year now on BCTV, and I'm the one who wants to say to them, thank you very much indeed, a very Merry Christmas, and a good, prosperous New Year.
Thank you, Jack. Love to you, too.
God bless, Iona. Thanks a million.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're talking to Rick Hansen. Rick, where are you?
Right now we're in White River, Ontario, which is in the northwestern part of Ontario, off the central part of Lake Superior.
So you're more than halfway across Canada.
That's right, and we're halfway finished the home stretch, which is a long one, of course.
I've been wondering, how is that Simon Fraser underwear working?
It's all working great. The winter clothing that we've been using has just been holding up fantastically, although we haven't been pushed any further than about 20 below zero. It's still every bit of the way it's been toasty, warm, and comfortable, and that's the most important part.
doesn't it send out some sensor signal if it gets too cold?
Yeah, that's right. Once we get anywhere below 20 below, we put on the skin sensors, and what that does is it monitors about eight or 10 locations on each leg.
So you can be rolling around and you suddenly hear a buzz?
Yeah, well, actually, you have a computer console that gives you, the temperature printout continually. It sort of alternates between different locations, and you get a constant check on the temperature of the legs. Because of my paralysis, obviously, I can't feel my legs. I wouldn't be able to tell if we were getting frostbite or any problems down there. And these sensors will allow us to test the outer limits of the clothing with some degree of safety and reliability.
So you're in good shape, Rick. Tell us, how does it work with all those heavy clothes you got on now and the mittens? Can you still turn the wheels as easily?
Yeah, everything's been going real well. The clothing is lightweight enough that it allows me the flexibility and the movement from the upper arms. Yet it's insulative enough to keep the lower part of my body, the feet, especially where the circulation is poor, really well secured as far as warmth goes. The only problem we're having is we're just moving to thicker gloves for the cold, and that means that I'm contacting the rim in a little different way. My technique is a little bit different, and it means a bit of adjustment, a few minor injuries, a few minor problems. But other than that, everything's going fine. The other problem we have, of course, is just the grip on the rims with the icy and snowy conditions. It makes it a little bit more difficult. We're using different surfaces now.
Well, where are the injuries? In your shoulders or in your hands?
Yeah, right now, both injuries are occurring in the right and left shoulder, and they flare up according to the terrain or the weather that we're encountering. Right now, everything seems to be going real fine, though.
Great. How many kilometers have you covered now?
Well, I'm still in miles. We're at 21,450 miles. So,
my goodness.
We're rolling along. The last 3 days, we were averaging 60 miles a day, so that's almost 100.
And how much money have you raised?
We're at $4.3 million at this point in the bank.
Fantastic.
And, it's growing phenomenally every day.
Well, you've just rolled through Ontario. Did the Ontarians treat you well?
It was fantastic. They've responded so positively. We've had people out in the streets. We've had people responding to the awareness aspect of the tour by helping with ramps, mayors in motion, mayors trying to find out the things that they can do for disabled persons in their community. We've had people coming out into the streets and giving us Christmas presents and good cheer, Christmas cards on the roads, Christmas trees, caroling, bonfires.
It's wonderful. Are you getting more used to being considered a hero, Rick?
Well, that part of it is it's always sort of tough for me because I want to make sure that we keep the tour in perspective, and I always want to keep bringing people back to why it is I'm out here, what's made me give up 3 years of my life, and let's not lose focus of that.
Were you pleased to be named Newsmaker of the Year, though?
I really was. It was a great honor for me because one of the objectives of the tour is to create awareness of the potential of disabled persons and make people think positively towards disabled persons. And one of the best ways to accomplish that goal is to work with the news media. And if we are considered newsmakers of the year in this tour, then that must mean that our message is getting out there and good things are happening. That's
great. You have all of Jack Webster's audience listening to you now, so do you have any special greetings from you and Amanda and from all your gang?
Well, on behalf of myself and the Man in Motion World Tour crew and team, we'd just like to thank you for your tremendous support up to date, and we'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season, Happy New Year, and let's make it a safe one as well.
Well, for sure, and you get the best wishes from everyone here. Rick, we're all terribly proud of you. Any estimated time of arrival in Vancouver yet?
Well, we're hoping in the spring of '87, and we just take one day at a time. So far, we're ahead of schedule in terms of winter, but we all know that we could wake up tomorrow with 30-mile-an-hour headwinds and 40 below zero. So we hope spring, and we'll work hard to get back home because we miss everybody back there.
Well, good luck as you start to roll through Manitoba.
Good luck. Bye-bye, Iona.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And as you know, we did that interview yesterday. Rick was taken to hospital today, but he was released. He's on the mend, and we're told that it's not a serious illness. And so I hope you'll join me after the break when Ted Rutledge is going to take us to the zoo with volunteer grandparents.
What's the final words? So she has some type of roll cue.
Now I'm going to ask you to meet Mary Painter, Director of Volunteer Grandparents of BC.
Director of Volunteer Grandparents BC?
That's
BC?
right.
Yeah, and then right into the piece.
Yeah, we're going right into the piece, and we're going right into calls.
Yeah, and right into calls.
Yes, calls and the piece together. Do we really need grandparents? Children today are often in a highly mobile society, and we have seen that our friend Ted Rutledge has guaranteed that you can have a good time by being a volunteer grandparent, as volunteer grandparent Eric is here with volunteer grandchild Christopher at the Stanley Park Zoo, just doing what all grandchildren and grandparents do together. And then join me right back here.
Look at it. Look at the water spray now. I want to see him jump out. I want to see him jump.
He didn't jump that time, did he?
No.
Whether you're in the autumn or spring of your life, nothing can be more gratifying than time spent with a friend from a different generation. For a lot of children, though, many factors often keep them from enjoying their own grandparents. Volunteer Grandparents of BC are helping them solve this problem.
Oh, he must like you.
The director of the society in Vancouver is Mary Painter.
Lots of people in this society are all alone. Older people particularly need to feel worthwhile, as if they're contributing something. And for the children, it's another adult in their life, another role model, someone to care about them, someone maybe to spoil them a little bit. We all need a bit of spoiling.
Wait a minute. See the man hosing down there? Yeah.
I think you should be careful.
Let's go back up into the sunshine, okay?
Sure, because I'm cool. Good.
At first, Christopher was sort of strange and really show-offy, you know, and almost obnoxious. But gradually he's starting to get used to him and starting to act like himself and just enjoy him.
A counselor screens volunteer grandparents and the families of children to match the needs and interests of both parties, as well as ensuring the grandparents won't simply become babysitters.
I mean, my favorite person in the world was my grandmother, so I think it's really a good... They don't have the pressures that parents and children have, and, you know, it seems to work well.
The squirrel took it, Mom! The squirrel took it!
Do you find Christopher plays you against Grandpa Eric at times, just like with ordinary grandpa?
Not yet. No, he hasn't reached that stage yet. He's still in the figuring out who he is and what he can get from him yet.
What are you doing there? Goodbye.
The arrangements benefit all those involved. The children and their families receive the company of an older friend, and for the grandparents, the results are obvious.
People get older and they get to the retirement stage. Maybe they're not doing anything. They have a lot of time in their hands. And what a wonderful idea it is to be able to share that time with somebody and to be able to bridge that gap of years that the older people have so much to offer to the newer generation of the 80s. And it really does work out wonderfully. With the red beak?
Yeah.
And there's a white one.
Yeah, that's a goose, I think.
Well, you're never too old to learn, and if you have the time to share with a youngster, volunteer grandparents say they always have a waiting list of available grandkids.
He seems to enjoy it, and he's certainly the sunshine of my life. He's a lot of fun.
If you want to get involved with the Volunteer Grandparents of BC, give them a call at 736-8271.
And welcome back. We have Mary Painter, who is the Director of Volunteer Grandparents of British Columbia, with us now, and I'm asking for your telephone calls right away too, because I think many of you would be interested in having a volunteer grandparent. Mary, what kind of families volunteer to have voluntary grandparents?
people from all sorts of backgrounds come to us. Some of them have moved from England or Australia and their parents aren't accessible to them. We have a lot of single-parent families. In fact, 3/4 of the families matched are from single-parent families because there's only one adult available to the child, and they particularly miss having grandparents.
And do you have them screened? Is there a police screening, or how do you go about screening?
Yes, the families have to provide us with 2 references, preferably a doctor's and someone who's known them for a while. And the grandparents have to provide these references, as well as a police check is done on every grandparent.
And how do you recruit grandparents?
Well, we come to the Webster show.
I see. Well, let's go to the calls. You're on the air. Go ahead. Louder. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's hear you.
Okay.
What would you like to say to Mrs. Painter?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to say Merry Christmas?
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Do you ever have any problems with the children becoming so attached to their grandparent, that their voluntary grandparent, that there's some problem in the family?
No, I don't think so. We have one gentleman who's been a volunteer grandparent for 12 years, and he's now seen one of his children have a child, so he's really a great grandfather.
A voluntary great-grandfather.
So that I've never heard of anybody having a problem of being too attached.
If any of you viewing would like to become involved, do give us a call and you can talk to Mrs. Painter. And I was wondering, does your organization conduct periodic checks to make sure that everything's still working well between the two?
Yes, we have a counselor who calls once a year. Every person is called, and we're available 4 days a week for any telephone calls.
And how important is this for the older person involved?
To be a grandparent?
Yes.
Well, older people seem to need to contribute something to life, and if they can get involved in the raising of a child and feel that they're doing a good job and helping a child become healthy and responsible, it gives them a sense of worth, and it's very important to them. Also, to be part of a family is a great thing. As you just heard,
yes.
People are very stressed at Christmas time because they don't have families. Well, we offer a way of meeting a volunteer family. And believe me, a lot of these people forget they're volunteers. They just become real family to each other.
Well, we'll go to the phones. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Yes. I was just wondering what you consider a grandparent. In what age group?
40 and up.
Pardon?
40 and up.
Yes, and I feel that way too. But the pictures you showed before you went to the telephone call showed grandparents as being very, very elderly.
Well,
that's Grandpa Eric. It happens to be one we chose, but they're all ages.
So I'm a great-grandparent.
Yes?
Yes, and I really would be quite interested in being a grandparent to some child.
Very good.
But I felt that probably I am too old.
Are you ever too old, Mary?
No, there's no upper age limit at all. We'd be happy to hear from you. We have 200 children waiting for grandparents.
And it doesn't matter whether you are a great-grandparent.
No, ma'am.
No. Thank you for calling. I hope you'll join in. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was just wondering, if the family has existing grandparents already, can they still have an adopted grandparent?
If you have grandparents in the Lower Mainland, we consider them available to you, so you wouldn't be eligible. But if they don't live in Vancouver or surrounding area, then by all means give us a call.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have another caller here. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Iona.
Hello.
A very Merry Christmas to you.
And the same to you.
I would like to ask a question in relation to this, but actually a little contrary, in that I am 70 years old, but I'm not there. I lead a very sedentary life because I have varicose arthritis, osteoarthritis in my knees. I would like to know if I could do anything to help from Mrs. Painter's side of the, of the thing. From the office, if I could do anything to help on that side.
Right now I can't think of anything specific in the office, but why wouldn't you want to be a grandmother?
Well, I think the child would be forced to lead a rather sedentary life.
Well, perhaps you could teach a little girl how to sew or quilt or knit or any kind of thing like that.
Yes, perhaps I could, but I think that children need energy, you know. They need to be taken out to places and things like that. I certainly, if you think I could be useful, I'd be happy to give you a call.
Well, please call in. Thank you for calling us now.
Thank you very much, and a very best wishes to you.
Thank you. One last call for long distance here. We're going to go to Nanaimo. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Could this be organized anywhere in BC?
Yes, it can. We have a resource kit that's available for sale to start up programs in different communities, and we do have 3 branches in BC. So if you'd like to drop us a line and inquire about buying the resource kit, Nanaimo could certainly use a volunteer grandparents.
Thank you very much for calling, Nanaimo. And thank you, Mary. I'm sorry we just have such a fast show here, but at least people know where to get you now. And those telephone numbers are available, and we appreciate all that you're doing for the many children who are benefiting from this service. And a Merry Christmas. And there'll be a Christmas free-for-all. You can phone in and wish Merry Christmas to anyone, anywhere in British Columbia after the break. It's going to happen.
It's somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. That'll be all in the last package.
Yeah.
Okay, can you make sure your TV's turned on, please? Thank you, hold on. What's your question, please? Hello? What's your question, please?
One minute.
Hello? Okay, what was the question you had? You just wanted to wish someone a Merry Christmas? Okay.
How do we go between camera 1 and 2?
Webster show?
Okay.
Yes.
We'll probably keep you on camera 1.
I think you can just go right down the line.
I will, all right.
Avoid 7. Don't do 7.
All right.
Yeah, bypass 4 and 7. But just start at 1 and
Okay. It's Christmas free for all time. You're on the air.
Hello, Iona.
Hello.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It was very good listening to you all this week and last week. I congratulate you. And I would like to send out a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the Grant family up in Kitimat.
Great. Okay, Kitimat, I hope you got that message. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd like to wish my parents in Fruitvale, British Columbia, a very Merry Christmas.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Iona.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Hello, Iona.
Yes.
We've enjoyed your show in the last 2 weeks, and we'd like to wish a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Any other wishes for anyone in BC?
Yes, we'd like to wish our children in Smithers a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, also to our friends and family.
Oh, wonderful. A great good wish up to Smithers. Thank you so much for calling. And we have another caller. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to wish my grandmother Margaret O'Brien in Terrace, BC a very Merry Christmas from Tanis.
A special wish to Terrace, my old stomping grounds. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Going down the list, we have another one here. Special wishes? You're on the air, sir. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'd like to wish my grandmother in Kelowna, Giroux, Laura Giroux, a very happy Christmas, and to the present government.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We've been going at such a fast rate. This one we're going to have a little chat with. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I'd like to wish my mom Carolyn and my grandmother Hazel and Oliver a very Merry Christmas.
And how are you going to be celebrating Christmas in your home?
Flying down tomorrow, but this is kind of an early Christmas wish for them.
And where are you?
I'm here in Vancouver.
In Vancouver, in the rain. Is there snow?
Which I'll be very glad to get away from for a few days.
Have you heard, is there snow up in Oliver?
No, actually, yesterday there wasn't, so...
And what kind of a Christmas do you have when you get together?
Well, we have some relatives coming out from Edmonton, and it's pretty well all of my mom's side of the family is going to be there, so it's going to be kind of special this year.
How big will Christmas dinner be?
Very big.
Well, thank you very much for calling in.
And thank you, and I wish you a Merry Christmas, too.
And the same to you.
Okay,
Thanks
bye.
very much. Do you know, when we started the program today with Professor Cox from SFU, a man called in who was having a very lonely Christmas. And then a lady called in later and said she always loved to cook Christmas dinner. I may be a little bit what do you call it, soft. But I think it would be very nice if those two could get together. So if that man would call the station, and if that lady would call the station, maybe we can get you two together. I think that that would be a very happy Christmas for both of them. And now I'm going to check and see what other Christmas greetings we have here. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
I'd like to wish my brother and sister-in-law, Alan and Mary Daniels in Chemainus, a very Merry Christmas, and all the people in BC Tel.
And where are you?
I'm in Vancouver.
Okay, Chemainus, a very special wish coming out to you. And how will you be celebrating Christmas?
Oh, just quietly. We'll be enjoying it.
Very good. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
And now I've got another call here. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, Iona. I wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, and we all wanted to wish Jack a Merry Christmas, and my mom and my dad and my brand new fiance, Garen.
Well, that's lovely. And when are you going to be married?
We're going to be married in July, and we're going to invite Jack to the wedding, and you too, if you'd like to come.
Heather, it's you. Happy Christmas to you. We've got chocolates and goodies here, you know.
Well, thank you. Merry Christmas from everybody up in the control room.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And now we're going to go to another call. You're on the air.
Okay. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to wish my sister and brother-in-law, Bev and Robert Mankey in Cornell, and Jamie and Jody and Matthew and everybody I know in Cornell, a Merry Christmas from Bev's brother, Reg.
Sounds like a good wish. And where are you, Reg?
I'm in Port Coquitlam with my wife, Debbie.
Are you going to have a good Christmas?
Oh, you bet.
Terrific. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Now another call. You're on the air.
Hi, Iona.
Hi.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
I'd like to wish my Grandpa Prosky and Victoria a very Merry Christmas.
Yes.
And the rest of my family.
A very special greeting.
Yeah.
And what are you going to be doing for Christmas?
Well, I'm spending it with my family here in Vancouver.
Pretty lucky people, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for calling in.
Okay,
Merry Christmas. And now we're going to go up to one of my other old stomping grounds, Prince Rupert. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Iona.
Hello.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to let you know that a lot of people in Prince Rupert here are talking about you and wishing you all the best.
Well, that's
great.
Very
proud of you.
Well, I'm very proud of my old home, too. And Merry Christmas to everyone, and Mayor Lester, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'd like to also say Merry Christmas to my sister, Irene Newman, who is unable to come up for Christmas this year, and Jim Bontempo and Sharon Jackson.
Very good. Where are they?
Oh, they're in Vancouver.
Okay, thanks for your call. Merry Christmas to my brother and his wife and family in Prince Rupert. And now we're moving on. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hello. I'd like to wish Merry Christmas to my daughter Diane and Al in Prince George and my grandson Blaise.
Great.
And a very Merry Christmas to all you folks.
Thank you very much. And are you going to have a good Christmas?
I sure will.
And what are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to be with my sister.
That'll be lovely. Yeah. And you'll celebrate together.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling. Merry Christmas. You're on the air. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Iona. I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas, and also my mother and stepdad over in Victoria, Peter and Audrey Thomas.
Yes.
Up in Smithers, my sister and her husband, Debbie and Ralph Blas, and my two little nieces, Heather and Tracy. Wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And Merry Christmas to all the MLAs in the House, on both sides of the House.
Well, that's a nice nonpartisan Christmas greeting, and for an old politician like me, it just warms my heart. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. And now we have another call. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd like to wish my fiance's parents Merry Christmas, and their name's Roger and Dot Carrier.
And where are they?
They're in Delta.
In Delta?
Yeah, Surrey.
And where are you?
No, I'm more or less by Langley there.
More or less by Langley. Are you going to have a good Christmas out there?
I sure hope I do.
Very good. Make sure of that. Bye-bye. Thanks for calling. And you're on the air.
Yes, hello, Iona.
Hello.
Wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Our show in the last 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And we'd like to send a Christmas wish to our children, Brent and Lorene McMinn in Smithers.
Yes.
And to our two grandchildren, Justin and Travis, we wish them all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from Grandpa and Grandma Bearda.
I'm sure they felt the warmth of it all the way up to Smithers. Thank you so much for calling.
Also to our friends and brothers and sisters there. We miss them all.
Very good. That's a great place to have Christmas.
It sure is.
Thank you for calling. And we're coming to the end. Have we got time for one more call? I hope we have. You're on the air.
Oh, I'd like to wish Merry Christmas to my brother in Fort St. John, Alan.
Yes?
And my sister in Nuvik, which I guess you can't get this, eh?
Well, who knows what the Northern Broadcast does?
Yeah, right. And your brother, John Hardy.
Yes, I just wished him one.
Where is he?
He's in Prince Rupert.
Are you serious? Okay.
Well, thank you very much for calling in.
Take care.
Okay, Merry Christmas. And now we're moving into the final part of this show, and I'm going to just say that on behalf of everyone on the Webster Show, we're all moving. We're going to have a break. All right, then, I'll be back again yet. One more wish coming up after the break. Welcome back. For Jack Webster and for you and yours, the very warmest of all possible Christmas wishes, and remembering how beautiful a province we have and that there are many people who do not enjoy the great pleasures that some of us are lucky enough to have, let's reach out and give a little bit of extra wishes and help to those who need it. And now, I just want to wish you all a very, very happy Christmas from everyone here on the Webster Show, and we'll be back again on Monday, of course, at 5 p.m. precisely. Merry Christmas from the Webster Show! Goodbye, Merry Christmas! Bye. Be careful! Have a good time! You see, you thought Jack did it all by himself.
How to survive in Europe with only $10,000 a day. But my very good friend Bob Coates is writing a book too. The title will be Nights in Berlin. But the Right Honorable Prime Minister, wants to have a book, and it will be inspired from my book, and it will be straight from the jar. And he will be followed by Joe Clark, who will write a book, I Took It on the Chin. And, it will be completed by our good friend John Crosby, that we all love, who will write a book about it. It's going to be a very serious book. You won't laugh very much. It will be a book about the deportation of the Maritimers to Bangladesh. But as you know, John has been a very good friend of mine for a long time. We have been together on TV on Friday night, with Ian Deans, trying to explain the Parliament to the people. And we were sometimes successful, sometimes not very successful. But I consider him as one of my friends, and I went to see him the other day because I have a problem. I quit politics 6 months ago, and